in blue. You know, there's a lot of black which isn't being done, but the blue and greens are. Some's coming from central funds from the college, and that's the blue, and then the green is coming from essentially sponsored programs or limited offer funds that are not being replenished. So they're just kind of what's in the coffer that's getting tapped into. And I'll say this, that it might be hard to see, but having I've been here for 6 years now, and 5 years, I don't know, which somewhere in between those two numbers. What we've done from an outreach perspective, just by having Cassie here, to me is just absolute proof that somebody in a position like that would be a tremendous asset, that their full-time job is really outreach and organic programming. Just little things in terms of, well, not so little, but maybe little from getting a website that's updated with the information that's current, having people listed there. All of I don't know, she's done so many articles in the last year. It's been really good. So I don't know, you all can read. We can go through this list and think about things, but I think that one of the challenges at the university is that Doug was alluding to this before, is that we all have, I've got my responsibilities, some of which include organic, but not all. Just like, any faculty member has that same thing. And so maybe we'll do 20% of our work is organic focused, or maybe more, maybe less. But thinking about how we can get together to do that. One of the things I think is, I don't know, I'm looking for it right now, but Cassie, you want to talk about some things that particularly interest you in terms of what would be easy to do to like move us forward? Now that you took a big bite of food.
Thank you for that. I guess I'm interested in some feedback. I've just kind of been stumbling around in the dark a bit. I've been doing this blog, and I'm, eager for more stuff. There's plenty out there. I run across stuff all the time. I think, oh, I need to do an article about that. But, time. So I'm going to keep feeding that. But like I said, if 2/3 of our farmers are totally not on the internet, what are some alternative ways to reach that audience? So that's kind of key in my mind. And with what I'd like to see happen is to do some of these low maintenance things so that we can kind of build some momentum and show the administration that, these things are going on and that there is an audience out there that we can engage with. So, I think just that one under low maintenance of just building a network of farmers. So, if somebody came to whoever's leading offer and said, I'm interested in doing some work on, IPM in the greenhouse setting, we could say, oh, well, here's a few people that would be willing to work with you. Or, I'm interested in doing some dairy farm research on mastitis or whatever. That we could give them a few resources, and they could include those people at the beginning when they're first talking about their grant, and kind of make them part of that process from the first planning stages. So I think, to me, that's very low hanging fruit. That's something we can be doing now, with probably a little bit of investment.
Yeah, I just wanted to support completely that statement, because as a younger faculty here, one of my challenges of getting involved into organic research is that I don't know any single farmer. And because of my background, I have not had a lot of experience in doing on-farm research. So having that institutional support will be amazing. I've been able to meet a couple of people, and in that way to build collaboration. But I think for special faculty like me that didn't have that on-farm experience before, or come from very different backgrounds, having that way to connect with the farmer will be a really good way to be able to really just think about write those grants.
Right. And Doug said we're interested in hearing from farmers, but I'm interested in hearing from researchers too. You know, what can we do to help you connect? You know, if we're taking some of that F&A money, we should be doing something to support you. So
I would offer as a grain growers group to tap into that resource. There's a cross section of Ohio grain farmers, cross section of both OFA and GOA. It's a cross section of ideas and guys got things, and I would probably emphasize to come to our January meeting, because that will be our first one to recap our past year, and you can hear things that we had trouble with. Guys are trying new things, seeing how they are. Maybe tap into that source.
So one of the things that I've heard today, well, let me back up. So when Steve and I make this visit to Columbus here in a few weeks' time, you know, it seems like what we're talking about is someone who's going to focus on extension and outreach, actually get out of the office, get out of the lab, go spend time with farmers, get to know them, develop relationships, and then facilitate getting information to them and getting things back to the researchers too. Is that the message that we should be bringing? I mean, in my department, for instance, we're going to be hiring some new faculty, but you know, maybe we don't want a tenure track research professor who's going to be split into teaching and research and have to publish papers to get tenure and stuff. Maybe we need someone who doesn't have that requirement on them, who's more extension oriented. What do we tell them?
Well, Doug, is there also an opportunity for ATI, for a faculty member there to be a component of this?
And here's a question, Doug, does it need to be a faculty member? We've always gone on the assumption that it needs to be faculty, but is that in fact true?
I was a research scientist.
Well, that's really the question I'm trying to get at. I didn't ask it very well. Thanks for clarifying that, Kathy.
But I mean, seriously, if you had someone who wasn't faculty, who could be, you know, take this over full time, I think you might be further ahead. I really do.
Need a facilitator,
Coordinator.
organizer, and a networker.
Yeah, a coordinator.
Social person, not a research person.
I agree. At this point, I think that we don't need a researcher.
They organize the research. They don't have to do it. Yeah.
And I hate to say the word cheerleader, but I think you need something to talk it up. You know, I didn't realize that the research was even going on here anymore. I thought it was dead. So, you know, and other people don't know that you need somebody on boots on the ground to go out there and talk about it.
And it needs to be more than part-time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the outreach person would be awesome, to be sure. But from my perspective, you know, someone that's connected with the researchers and the farmers. Because I knew you guys. I mean, it's like, come on, we're going to get together, you know, brown bag lunch and talk about the REI proposals and, you know, what are, you know, you remember how we did, you know, that was here. That's really, really important, especially when we're talking about going for $50 million. There needs to be a lot of those groups, and having someone to catalyze that, you know, with those connections, with the farmers. Also, I really strongly suggest on these OREI proposals, I think it should almost be routine to partner with OFA. I think that will strengthen proposal. You're building that connection. They've got the direct connection to the farmers. They've worked with us. Yeah, we did that a fair amount. And really, I really enjoyed working with them.
Kind of a question for Harold and for Alan in particular. I mean, is what's being described, is that a personnel position in the Department of Extension, in OSU Extension?
I suggested years ago a split appointment, which has been done. I think cattlemen's have done it and others. Or it could be part-time OFA, part-time extension, and that way you don't have to fund the whole thing. They're working much closer together. If we had a person, they positioned at the Cattlemen's Association. I mean, so there's precedent for splitting the costs that way. If you can't get full-time, go for something like that.
That was just.
So we don't have a checkoff to draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
We need the university to
Right.
fund this.
Right.
We just don't have access to that kind of funding. And as struggling as it is from the university perspective, it's 5 times as hard here as a nonprofit to be able to gain the kind of dollars we need to do our work. I mean, you know, just assuming that we have capacity to attend meetings. I mean, we already have full-time staff, so it would be great to have a split position that could play that role, because we look around and wonder how we're going to produce that time out of our hide, but we also don't have a pot of money just sitting around waiting to spend it. Otherwise, we'd already be staffing up here.
Doug,
Carol, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
No, not directly.
I do.
I was gonna say, I told Steve, I'm more interested in sustainable practices across all of our production.
Well, I'll just reflect. In another life, I work a lot with the economic crops team, and that's a kind of a very informal, you know, non-card carrying membership based primarily in Ohio State University Extension, and we have weekly. Every Monday morning, there's a conference call in the growing season. State specialists from the from the different departments call in, and we listen. There's county educators on the call, so there's all this information that's getting shared. It's co-coordinated by Harold and by Greg LaBarge, and that's a big job because it's all things at agronomy, field crops, and not to say that organic's any less complicated, but you can juxtapose where we're at as a university, and Alan, you can certainly chime into this, right? But like where we are as a university in terms of the effectiveness of programming for conventional field crops versus the effectiveness of programming for organics, and it's night and day. But I don't, there's lots of reasons for that. It's not like we bring one person in here and everything's solved and like Ohio State's back on. It's like, we have to recognize that this is not just a magic bullet fix, but I think that I just, look at those two things, and it's very clear to me. If it were up to me, I would put a person in the Department of Extension. Maybe there would be one course taught that would be on organic production. So you can have some, from administration perspective, you have some cost recovery that would, but that person's primary responsibility, just like as Harold's is to serve as liaison, as a resource person. Harold has statewide appointment. He's everywhere, all at the same time, as far as I can tell. And, but Harold doesn't have the same constraints for, say, somebody like me in terms of like pushing manuscripts out the door, getting grant dollars in. And you could argue that Harold's a lot more effective at his job than I am because the fact that, he's boots on the ground working directly with growers on a day-to-day basis. So,
But part of that reason is because I talked to you and Peter Thomason and Laura Lindsay and Mark Laux and Ed Dorrance and Piers Paul. I am not a specialist. My goal is to help my agronomic crops producers, and I go anywhere I can to get that information. Somebody said something about, do we go to Purdue? I go to Purdue on a weekly basis and get information. I go to Penn State. I go to Michigan State. I go to Minnesota this morning. I was digging through some stuff for my guys here from Minnesota, just put out a report. I go wherever I can. I just translate it for Ohio.
One of the things, I've been here for 20, 21, 22 years. And I mean, messages get sent to professors kind of, it's never said openly, but I think one of the very clear messages that faculty in my college have received over the years is that you get promoted and you get known based on getting grants, particularly big grants, and writing a lot of papers, getting a lot of papers. And, I'm 70, I will say this, I'm 75% extension, but I don't do 75% extension. I don't do even close to it. And that's because the university doesn't, I mean, they would never say that. My pay comes from extension. But they want me to publish papers and they want me to get these grants, which, someone who's 75% extension, you'd have to ask, why would they be leading a $2 million grant in the first place? Or something that, and this is, I truly believe this has happened. I'm going to be retiring fairly soon, so I can say things like this. But, this is hurting us in a big way in terms of our relationship with the farming community. And I don't know too much about the agronomics crops, but I know when it comes to fruit and vegetables, it's pretty much the same deal, that they're about as disillusioned as the organic farmers are. One thing I've noticed here today is that dairy and grazing and these things keep coming up over and over again. We have tried to get people from our animal science department to kind of join in on these conversations. We haven't had really any success at all. Can't even get them to come for a beer, let alone come to a meeting like this, except for Luciana. Luciana's always here. She's veterinary medicine too,
Yeah,
Like,
that was my experience.
we got to find a way to engage. And Brian said we've got a new chair who will talk to us, and maybe it can happen that way. But we got to get them at the table, and this can't be just about crops.
Well, I think going back to Dave's point about the grain growers chapter, how that's a valuable resource to talk to farmers. You have the same opportunity with dairy in this area. I mean, there's 150 dairy farmers within 50 miles of here that you can tap into. And anytime we have, you have your meeting in January. In January, we have what we call the Farmer Roundtable, where the farmers get together, sit in a big circle like this, and they talk about one thing that they tried this year that worked, one thing that didn't work, and one thing they would like to strive for next year, a goal. They each have between 5 and 7 minutes. And that's, there were 2 girls from last year were at the meeting and talking to dairy farmers, and they were just blown away by how transparent the farmers were. And I think the best comment that came up out of that whole meeting was from a 26-year-old farmer. He said he sat there and listened to 43 other farmers talk about things that didn't work. And it made him realize where he can take a risk and where he can't take risk. Because he said he's up to his ears in debt. He can't take big risk. So, and he said, if I go to a conference, I just listen to a guy talk about everything that went perfect. And he said here he got the real side of the, so I think we have the opportunity, and anytime Organic Valley has a meeting with our farmers, anybody's invited. We don't just send it out to our membership. Whoever wants to come is more than welcome to be there. We're completely transparent at those meetings.
And the dairy and the grain can work, they work side by side in that area.
Very much so.
I guess my question would be is what is the current hierarchy of organics for Ohio State University? What positions are out there? Are they filled? Are they not filled? I mean, what does this look like? What is the if you were to point and say who's to go to at Ohio State for organic, who
For extension,
well,
I still tell my coworkers, contact Alan.
well, and quite frankly, that's I use Alan as my, because I don't know what I spend a lot of time working with the university, and I ask that question, and I'm just waiting for the answer to come out. Either we don't have one, or we need Cathan Crest to actually define this position.
Well, part of the trouble is, and I think Steve alluded to this, we all have full-time jobs in a sense. I'm the state wheat specialist for fruit and vegetables.
Oh yeah, right.
And so like I've been the Steve Slack asked me to be the interim director of Offer for a year. So 4 years later, I said I'm done, and I put it in writing. Because
Here you
when
are.
when I just said it verbally, it didn't help at all. So December 31st is my last day. So, I mean, I'm definitely not. I'm that person on on paper, the interim director, but it's such a tiny part of everything that I'm involved in that I know I don't give it the attention it deserves. Never have.
Well, just as you alluded to, but what is if the university is going to have somebody that's going to be in this position, what does that look like? First and foremost, or is that what you're trying to get out of us?
That's exactly what we're trying to get at, because Steve said, we're gonna make an ask here. We want to get it right.
It sounds like with these retiring people, pool that money to one resource, one actual energetic, organic research person, and let the reins go and let them go. And don't hold them back, to some degree.
So Dave, I asked you and I asked David the same question, see how you both answer. Should this person that we hire, should they have been trained and experienced in grain systems or in vegetable specialty crops?
Well, there's a line that could, that's a tough one for me. I want grain. For him, he wants especially grains.
I really like the team.
Actually, I have a good answer to that. Neither.
There are a couple.
Because I think they should be trained in the actual communication and interaction with, because the resources are there. Like I said, we just went through this with 4 weeks ago, I think, because Kath Ann sent somebody over to get notes, same notes you're looking for right now, but you guys are gonna have to do the same thing. and one of the biggest things that came out of that was the fact that there's not a lack of facilities or qualified personnel. There's a severe lack of communication. And that's what I'm saying. When I say Ohio State falls behind, it's because by the time Steve has a problem in his field, and he calls me up and it's like, well, let's dig into this. It wouldn't even come up on somebody's radar at Ohio State until 13 months later, if at that. Say a year and a half, say 2 years to be realistic about it. So that being said, it's saying what do we currently have? Right? What's currently in place that works? They're fortunate to have you in the position that you're at because you're pretty bright, and they need more of you doing what you're doing, but you also don't have the ability to come out and see Steve's problem in his field, right? But if there's a good communicator that goes, oh yeah, by the way, I know what you're working on because I see all the stuff you're working on over here. I see the problems because over here is my problem, right? So it's linking these together, and I think what Deb alluded to is that a lot of these research monies, and if money becomes an issue with Ohio State, it's always, any university, it's always an issue, right? But if you're dealing with organics, and organics are growing by such leaps and bounds, monetarily, that money is going to reverse flow back into the university, right? So if someone pitched that to Kath Ann, it would be like, hey, you want money? I would latch onto this right now because some way, shape, or form, the money will refunnel back through in the form of research, in the form of staffing. If staffing,
Well, the overheads on a $2 million grant are not trivial.
right?
Is there any curriculum at ATI, Ohio State, I don't know where, as far as organics, or is it just kind of hush hush? We don't talk about that.
That's a dream.
Is there really anything?
I can't speak for ATI, but at least within my department, it's not hush hush. That's for certain. But and again, on the vegetable end of it, we've gone from having 3 vegetable specialists 4 years ago to having 1 vegetable specialist, and that has an impact on what you can do. So we have taught an organic vegetable production course a few times. But, we don't really have someone that's their job to do and kind of lead it. And that's where Steve was saying, if we get someone hired, maybe teaching like organic vegetable production 1 year. I don't know. I think you could do organic vegetable production and organic grain production. Maybe together, not sure. But doing some teaching as well, because there is kind of a pent-up demand. But it's got to be someone who's passionate about it. You talk to me passion. It's got to be dedication. This is what they want to do. They don't want to be a weed control specialist testing herbicides like me.
You can be a weed control specialist, but not chemical. I mean, there's a whole nother field over
They
here.
got to be
Other than that.
They got to be the kind of person who says, no, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I want to do organic.
So here's the crazy idea with thinking about somebody that could potentially teach something within organics. And within this whole new GE system, there is a whole big theme on sustainability, right? I mean, an organics course will fit perfectly in there as a systems level sustainability. So that could be a course that a person that has this communication and outreach could really develop within that program. I don't know where it will fall within the college and which unit's gonna hire that person, because that I think it will be difficult. But that could be also kind of course that could be integrated in there. That will fall within this whole new vision that,
Judge, I'm gonna have to leave shortly, but I just, if Ben were here, I'm gonna channel him here for a minute. I know he would say, you've got, with all these retirements, you really need to start, and you guys you're going to the administrators, but it needs to be a big holistic sell. With the importance, the consumers want these products, we have a track record here. We haven't had somebody dedicated to this. There's huge money coming down the pike in 3 years. Now's the time to start preparing for that in terms of research dollars. But what I'm saying, so, the current administrators need to be on board philosophically and practically. So you've got their support, but then as you're working within the departments with these retirements, I know when Ben was still alive, I mean, there was a thing, and I think a lot of you guys were even hired. It's like, we wanted people that could work with, the institution had this systems thing. You didn't have to be organic, but, we were leaning and much greener. And so the new people hired were already, sympathetic to that. And so that being built in at the departmental level, as you bring new people in. Yeah, different universities have different models, and this would be an interesting exercise, actually. I mean, there are some of the, like Washington State, they've got a degree in organic agriculture. I would love for my grandson to be able to go to ATI and get a 2-year degree in organic dairy farming. And if I live through what I'm going through right now, maybe I'll help make that happen or something, because that is a passion I have. But yeah, you got to think channel Ben. You knew Ben, you didn't, but you're thinking like him. It's got to be embedded in a larger support structure, if you will, and hopefully the new administration. Organics is not the dirty word that it was. Oh my gosh, I go back to when I couldn't even say the S word.
Thanks, Deb. I think that's actually huge what you just said. I think if we go in and we can show truly the big picture, we have a much better chance.
Right. And yeah, we had the advantage of, Tom Noyes saying we're going to do this, and he stood up against other administrators and department chairs that said, no, we're not. He said, no, we're going to do this. So that, if you've got a champion at that level, that makes a huge difference, but at least making sure that, they're sympathetic. And it is, it is a fact of life in the consumer place. Look at how organic sections in our grocery stores are growing. And then, so much, especially on the grain side, so much is imported. And then we got all these issues, and we need more producers and yeah, anyway.
And Deb, I would add in, I think Emily's probably mad that I didn't throw in a very important statistic that came out of the 2017 census, which hopefully you all got the full report and will read it. But, Ohio is second in number of acres transitioning to organic. There is a real case to be made to the upper administration that Ohio needs to step up and serve this part of the industry, because there's just such growth and potential here.
I think the idea of an organic extension team that would incorporate your grains, your vegetables, your pathology, if you can get an economist on that, maybe some of the social science, that would be, and you've got a dedicated outreach person, that coordinator, that would be the cat's meow.
Steve, what we really need is like we need to have it in writing. This is the proposal. This is what it's going to cost.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was telling you we need to work on.
That's right.
And when is your meeting?
We don't have, we had one scheduled for this Monday. We postponed it, I think, for good reason. And because we wanted to have this conversation first. You haven't heard Doug in terms of, they haven't written back the date or anything.
I think they're waiting for us.
Okay, yeah. So.
Well, putting together like the leverage figure, your idea on the overhead, how much overhead did we bring in? I'm speaking administrative. My dad was a dean, so I kind of know that side of it too. Actually, dean of agriculture at the University of Tennessee. But, that's the kind of stuff they will,
And we'd like letters of support from the, from the industry as well. I think that's part of the process. Give you all time to review and think about if there's anything that you'd like to add or change and sign on to it. Maybe even be part of that meeting. I don't know.
I was thinking about that, or maybe a group of them, take the administrators out to lunch, like your uncle and Hart Railing and Louise Warner.
This is Emily. I just really want to thank Deb for thinking big. I really think it's important to try and think beyond how to apportion one person's time and think about how we can get at this in a more systemic and holistic way.
One point I do need to step away, but one point I'd like to make kind of goes back to Mike Kessel's comments a little bit about reaching scale to access markets and things like that. And if we're going to engage someone else, the engagement person probably needs to understand industry and industry opportunities too, and find a way to use the university to de-risk those opportunities to start to get some things to scale. Mike was part of a team that we met with a company 10 years ago now that's providing products. 80 dairy farmers in this community are providing products to that company because we could reach a scale. The grazing group went to scale. But I also talked to Doug about when there was a pasture poultry or Naked Oats project here. We disseminated that to the public and producers impacted that. But we can take that same data and go to industry and say, how do we scale this up? How do we go from a fraction of a percent to 10% of the U.S. poultry production being in this process, and go out to industry and say, okay, here's the main equipment manufacturers, grain handling systems, things like that. And can we actually do something that is extremely impactful to U.S. agriculture by taking our information and combining it with their desire to find new product opportunities? So I think we can't leave that off the equation. Yeah, production's the one side of it, but who in the university can also help reach that other sector where if you want research dollars, those dollars could come in through sponsored research opportunities also.
The whole supply chain. And that's makes it really exciting.
So another crazy thing, and I know it was in Renee's presentation, is she was thinking about hemp. And I know that's something that the administration has on radar. And, you know, and I know the hemp and the whole medical marijuana and cannabis business, they are all talking about organic. Because for a medical marijuana production, you know, it's all organic. It's not, they're not, so I don't know if, I mean, it could be a double-edged sword here because, you know, you are going to end up supporting a hemp program. I mean, I think it's very complex, but that could also be something that may or may not be integrated in some of these discussions. And, you know, that university definitely is interested in moving forward with research in hemp.
Just to piggyback briefly on what Brian mentioned, if you attend a National Organic Standards Board and you hear about some of the challenges, Renee brought up one earlier about trying to get alternatives to synthetic methionine for poultry production. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity for kind of entrepreneurship and product development as well. And many areas are being held back by the lack of resources and products available for organic production systems.
Steve, I think we've received a lot of really good input this afternoon, and I think Deb, I think maybe I sort of caught the need to look bigger than maybe I've been looking for the first time just from your comments. Channeling ban is going to be that's a big set of shoes to fill. I'm not sure I can do that, but the comment, the thought, I think was really useful to me personally. Going forward, I think we're probably going to run some ideas off all of you. We'll take a look at them before we sit down with Dean Kress or who else we're going to be meeting with, and we might in the end ask one or more of you to join us too, if everybody agrees to that. I think that's probably all I've got to say this afternoon.
I've got
Are there
one more
any
thing to
other
throw out.
closing comments? Cassie, you got one.
Yeah, just thinking short term because I know how slowly the university can work. There is money available through the in fact, linkage and leverage. I hope I'm saying that right. That might be something we can apply for some short term, you know, I guess maintenance and just to make sure this moves forward. And I think that would also, those grants are due December 15th, I think. So that would also kind of help us maybe coalesce a little bit around this and get a plan together, and, you know, it'd be a good starting point.
Casey's, I mean, I've been out of the system here, but you know, worked with him enough to know he has got his fingers on a lot of stuff, and he knows how to work the system. So he's a good resource for you in terms of, you know, overall approach and ideas.
And this is Renee. That's kind of where my head went. I don't know how we can do it if there was capacity for somebody within OSU to be able to lead this kind of a visioning year so that we could sit down and create a pathway forward for organics in Ohio. Because it's really hard unless there is that kind of support staffing to really develop this out. There seems to be a lot of ingredients, a lot of good research ideas to target. If there's retirements happening, to have a strategic hiring process, but all that needs to be kind of laid out in some kind of strategic plan. So it's going to take some resources to get to that point. But that's how we get big.
The only question I had, and between Doug and Steve, is how much focus is put on the educational aspect of this? for students?
For like undergraduate students, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer. I think, when we have, as far as I know, there's only one vegetable organic production on the books at HC at Horton Crop Science, and it hasn't been taught in numerous years, probably over 5 years. So when we're starting with nothing, it's, I think it's appropriate to have in the college offering at least one course dedicated to organic production of something. And so,
Meanwhile, organic vegetable production are the largest classes taught at Cornell and at University of Illinois. Well, it was University.
Yeah,
And yet we've never managed to capitalize on that here.
well, do you think that with this group of stakeholders and researchers that are around the table right now, do you think enough of the influence there is enough to warrant getting something off of the ground? I mean, what I liked hearing was the fact that there's more of a push to have a better amalgamation of ATI into this campus, into the Worcester campus, which is great. It should have happened
That's
1,000 years ago.
the new big push, as I understand it. Yeah.
They had a sustainable ag degree, and that, the politics, and I didn't want to bring it up when we were talking about this, but there's a lot of politics here and in Columbus. And I think they had, I taught the sustainable ag livestock and marketing class for one semester. There were 7 students in that class, and there was a lot of pressure from other faculties on them that they would voice to me in the class. So I'm not even sure they have the degree anymore. I know they do. Oh, do they? Okay. I know I did such a bad job they canceled.
And also along the lines of teaching, and this is something to think about, because like I said, this was brought up before. Does it require any of us that have an organic operation? I don't necessarily think it requires someone coming in with a 4-year degree to be able to work with me within our operation. Unfortunately, the universities, I'll say, look at that where they're trying to attract the best and brightest kids, right? And they put them down in Columbus. The last thing that we heard, I mean, from the horticultural side of it, was that, we want to focus our energies on Lane Avenue Farm, and then they want to build it to be able to attract the kids from their main campus, back to this again, and I left that meeting saying that that's a great idea, but you're not focusing on the ones you already have, the kids that want to be in agriculture, which are right here, right? We're saying, let's go down to main campus, let's build this, and let's track kids over into ag. So there's, and I know there's enough kids from being involved in through the 4-H, the FFA, that would love the opportunity to do it. Number one, either they aren't the valedictorian or the salutatorian of the class, and they didn't have the 1,600 or 1,500 on their SAT to get in to main campus. So that relegates them to coming here, which this should be a shining gem for the university to go, hey, look, you're a kid that's in agriculture, you want to come and you want to learn organics, that we got a place for you.
Oh, there's so many arguments, believe me. We've been, Ben and I and Casey, the AMP group, we were on this for probably 20 years. It'll happen. In my rather long life experience.
And I think it's fresh enough now, right?
We'll hit an inflection point and all of a sudden, watch out, hang on to your whatevers, because it will go, but we haven't hit that yet.
Well, the hope comes, we have a lot of retirements here.
Yes.
The hope comes when there's a lot of
Right.
retirements on the other buildings.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And that might be a good consolidation of resources, both human and otherwise, when it does come to that point. And it warrants having people that specialize or concentrate more in those areas. Right? If you have a teaching appointment, which most of you do, if you have a teaching appointment, that also can fall into place with some research that goes along with it. You know, because that's what it's gonna be. It's going to be the fact of how much pain you get out of your butt rate if you're a university. Well, the answer to that's pretty easy, because 62 cents of that dollar is gonna go to overhead. It's gonna go to fund everything else within the university. So what are you gonna do with the remaining 47 cents you have, or whatever is left from that? And I think looking at this, and I think it's kind of exciting to almost have it where it doesn't exist at all, because that's great. You don't have to follow any roadmap. There is no roadmap, right? There's no structure to go into, so you can make it whatever you want. And I think that structure, at least for the next 10 or 15 years, is going to be a very organic structure. I think it's going to be morphing and twisting and changing all the time. So to go to anybody, to go to the university or go to Kathy Ann and say, this is what we need, I don't think there's enough confidence, even within this group, to say this is exactly the person we need, because give it a half a year and that'll change, right?
On the teaching, can anybody tell me what's going, Casey mentioned that there is a new degree program or something within
There's
what?
a degree program that's not departmentally based. It's in the
Right.
college. It's sustainable ag. So students will be able to get a degree in a Bachelor of Agriculture in Sustainable Ag will be the major. Casey's been leading efforts to try to pull sustainable ag programs from a number of different universities that all will funnel into get their associate's degree and then come to Columbus for the final years 3 and 4 if they opt to do that. So,
Well, to me, there's a direct door to bringing in organic as one form of sustainable in terms of the education side. Really work with Casey. He's going to be retiring too. We're going to have those shoes. I think next year.
I think he's got at least 1 year, yeah.
He told me at the Steiner Summit this year, said one more and that's it.
So that was one of the things I was saying before. It's like there's very few assistant professors in this world, and I think that's something that needs to be broad. We have to also do it like a movement here. We, the assistant professors, also want this because we're the ones that are going to be staying here, hopefully for the next.
Right. And when we started back in my day, that's what
exactly.
they were. They were young, open-minded, excited. Yeah.
So we need also to get more assistant professors.
Yes, definitely.
And like I was saying, the reason why I knew about this was because I did my PhD here. With Ryan, when he was here, and everything was very active. When I came as assistant professor, it was like, where is the program? So we need to get more support from assistant professors. Say this is something that we're also envisioning as a group, and I can bring this conversation to my department for sure. But
all right. Well, I think we're good. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you coming and spending the time here. Doug, any last words? It's your last meeting as the interim. So blessed.
If everybody would leave their badges in the back, these are the expensive ones. I gotta trade them back.
Record this, so I'll probably just send a link out to whoever signed up. I don't think I want to make it publicly available.
Thanks, Renee and Eric, for doing the marathon.
Thank you.
Yes.
See you guys.
Remarks about 30 versus 20 on phosphorus. I mean, you guys do what you do.
Yeah.
But I will probably continue from my
Say
perspective.
that, yeah.
to say
Well, I
that-
want to write that. Like,
Yeah, 20, but